Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwartner. Welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the great pleasure of speaking with Dr. Paul Stoltz. And he is an author, a very prolific author, who has written the book Adversity Quotient, which has been translated into Chinese, has become #1 bestseller in China. Welcome, Paul.
Well, great to be here with you. Thanks for having me with you today, especially during these adversity-rich times.
What made you decide the first time to write something about adversity?
You know, I had this skull-exploding revelation, to be honest. I started with the most innocent question. When I was a young punk, I was 19 years old. I came up to this professor and advisor guy I had at the University of California, greatest guy. And I asked him what I thought was such an easy question. And I said, how do we know who wins, who fails, and who prevails? And so he literally pokes me in the chest and he says, okay, that's going to be your first research project. Go find out. Here I am 40 years later, still excavating. And what happened with me was I had now kind of gone to 21 different scientific disciplines, and I kept asking these big scientists what the big aha from their science was, and no one had put the puzzle pieces together. The big thing was the unifying theme of these 3,500 studies from all over the world, if you had to boil it to a word, was adversity. And I went, whoa, that's like the ink with which we write the human narrative. What if we had something called an AQ? Like, what if there were a way to actually measure, and even more importantly, permanently strengthen and improve how we respond to and what we do with adversity? And so that was the journey we went on. And now today, you know, all these years later, starting with version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, with the help of Harvard and MIT and all these other really smart people, we have assessed the AQs of more than 1 million individuals across 137 countries. That first book's been in 17 languages, and we learn more every single day.
Define adversity.
The way I define it is this. Isn't adversity really when you predict or experience something bad happening to someone or something you care about? So, how much adversity have you or others have experienced or experiencing right now over things that have not yet occurred? And that's where worry and anxiety kick in. That's a form of adversity. It hasn't even happened yet, right? Second of all, if you don't care, it's not adversity. The deal is this. If you ask someone, and of course we've measured 1 million AQs, so some are at the top of the bell curve. Those people, if you ask them, what have been the biggest adversities of your life? They look at you blank, you know, and they'll go, well, you know, I've been really lucky, a few bumps in the road, right? But someone with a low AQ, every day is tragic and catastrophic and filled with crisis and injustice and setbacks. So what AQ is about is measuring and strengthening what we call your core response to anything and everything.
You must have had a good role model from your parents, either your father or your mother.
Each in their own way, absolutely. And honestly, a big inspiration for me was my grandmother, who lived to 106. And she was the most relentlessly, authentically optimistic person I've ever known. And when I wrote this first book, Adversity Quotient, she said to me, you know, Paul, I have to tell you, this is the first book I've ever read that explained to me why I'm the way I am.
What was your biggest adversity in your life?
I would say the biggest adversity that I faced in my life was not my own. I think it was really my wife's. 29 years ago, she was diagnosed. She dropped a glass of water at a party, and it was a weird thing, and she got diagnosed with MS. Wow, we went, wow. You know, everything we read about it, where it's just progressive, degenerative, neurological disease, and it just decimates you. But I can tell you the good news, which is today, 29 years later, she is certified in every form of physical fitness you can imagine. She teaches boot camp, bar class, everything else. Last year, in a nationwide contest, and this is a woman who is not in her 30s anymore, she won American Fitness Idol. She has no visible signs of MS whatsoever. She would say, I deep inside myself practice everything we've been saying and talking about and learning about AQ every day.
So at the core of how we feel is really the narrative about us. How can we change it?
So we can permanently upgrade our AQ, permanently strengthen our core response to adversity. And we teach a number of sort of almost mini Swiss Army knife type tools that people can use to do that they can apply with anyone for anything at any time. Those are our 3 criteria for every tool we teach to improve your AQ.
Can you share a few of those tools?
One of them that's the simplest is to take the 4 core dimensions and turn them into 4 core questions. So the first core dimension is control. And it kind of asks the question, to what extent do you perceive you can influence whatever happens next? And that asks the question, how likely are you to step up to do anything to make it better, regardless of your job description? So then the question becomes, where and how can you step up to gain the most immediate positive traction? And that could be you, it could be we, right? And then reach is a powerful one. That one has to do with how far you perceive it reaches into and affects everything else. And those core questions have been on, the walls of boardrooms around the world, guiding decision-making, problem-solving, and discussion around some of the gnarliest adversities we can imagine.
Well, thank you so much. I recommend that everybody head to Amazon.com and get one of Dr. Stoltz's book. It is a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
Such a delight. Thank you, Gerhard. Thank you, and thank you, everybody. Really nice to talk about this subject at such an important time.